Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're zeroing in on Bitcoin.
Right. Specifically, how it's growing, evolving beyond its original design.
Exactly. We want to explore these layers people talk about, layers built on top of the main Bitcoin network.
And what that means for its future, its capabilities.
Yeah. So the goal for you listening is to get a really clear picture of how Bitcoin's trying to handle more demand, new use cases.
Without fundamentally changing its core. That's the key bit.
Okay, so let's start at the bottom. Layer 1, the foundation.
That's it. Layer 1 is Bitcoin's base. Think ultimate security, decentralization. It's the final settlement layer.
Where everything gets permanently recorded, super secure.
Incredibly secure, censorship resistant, but it has limits. Speed is one,
Right.
and how complex transactions can be.
So keeping it simple is actually a feature, not a bug.
Precisely. It makes it robust, harder to attack, easier to agree on, but yeah, not built for, say, buying a coffee instantly.
Okay, that makes sense. So if layer 1 is the secure but slower base, that's where layer 2 solutions step in for
Mhm.
speed.
Exactly right. Layer 2 operates off-chain. Transactions happen outside the main Bitcoin network, mostly.
Off-chain, like setting up a separate channel.
Kind of, yeah. The best known example is the Lightning Network. Think of it like opening a tab between two people.
Okay.
You can make loads of small, instant, very cheap payments back and forth on that tab, that channel.
Without telling the main Bitcoin network every single time.
Right. Only the opening and the final closing, the net settlement, gets recorded back on layer 1. It massively increases capacity for small, fast payments.
Perfect for micropayments, remittances, things like that.
Definitely. And I know you've heard about others too, like Fedimint and Arc.
Yeah, briefly. They
Okay.
fit into layer 2 as well.
They do. Different approaches, maybe more focus on, say, privacy or community-based systems, but the same underlying goal: scale Bitcoin's use.
Without messing with that core layer 1 security.
You got it. Preserving decentralization, trustlessness.
Okay, layer 1 secure base, layer 2 for speed and efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
What about layer 3 then? Sounds like we're building even higher.
Well, if layer 2 is mainly about scaling payments, layer 3 is more about expanding functionality, doing more complex things.
Beyond just sending Bitcoin back and forth.
Exactly. These build on layer 2, or sometimes interact with layer 1 to enable more, let's say, advanced applications.
Like what kinds of things? Can you give an example?
Sure. RGB is a really interesting one. It lets people issue different kinds of digital assets, create more complex contracts.
On Bitcoin? How does that work without slowing down layer 1?
Well, the key is client-side validation. Most of the checking and validation happens on the user's end, not on the main chain.
So the main network doesn't get bogged down with all the details of these new assets or contracts.
Pretty much. And then you have more experimental stuff like BitVM. The idea there is to bring more programmability using fraud proofs.
Fraud proofs.
Yeah.
Meaning you assume things are okay unless someone proves otherwise.
Sort of. You do complex computations off-chain, and you only need the main chain to step in if there's a dispute, if someone thinks there's cheating. It could unlock really sophisticated uses.
It does sound a bit like the internet layers, Base
Yeah.
protocols, then faster connections, then all the apps on top.
That's actually a great analogy, and it highlights a big difference between Bitcoin's approach and many altcoins.
How so?
Many other blockchains, like, say, Ethereum or Solana, they build a lot of that programmability and speed directly into their base layer, their layer 1.
An all-in-one approach. What's the catch?
Well, the argument is about trade-offs. Can you maintain really strong decentralization and security when your base layer is incredibly complex and trying to do everything at once? It can create challenges.
Right. Potential vulnerabilities or centralization risks.
Potentially, yes. Bitcoin's philosophy is different. Keep layer 1 simple, secure, robust, then build complexity and features modularly on top.
Specialize. Keep the core strong. Add the fancy stuff carefully on layers above.
That's the strategy. It's how Bitcoin aims to scale, evolve, add features, but hopefully maintain that resilience, neutrality, decentralization.
So these layers, layer 2 and layer 3, they aren't just technical jargon. They're really Bitcoin's roadmap for the future.
I think that's fair to say. It's the long-term plan for growth, for adapting to how people want to use it without breaking what makes Bitcoin, well, Bitcoin.
Okay, wrapping up then. The key takeaway seems to be Bitcoin isn't static. This layered approach, L2 for speed, L3 for new functions, is how it plans to handle growth and new uses.
While fiercely protecting its core strengths, security and decentralization.
Right. So a final thought, perhaps, for you listening. Think about how this layered modular design might shape Bitcoin's adoption? Could it lead to uses, applications, integrations we haven't even really conceived of yet?
It really opens the door. It's potentially building a whole new financial infrastructure, not just digital cash, layer by layer.